Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. It's me again, Neth F, and this is my husband. His name is Steve. My husband is going to advise you about living here in the Philippines. So here you go, babe.
Well, I don't know about advice, but I've got some tips for you guys that and gals out there that are planning on coming over to the Philippines that I guarantee you will save you money, time, and a lot of hassle. Not to mention the stress that's generated by it. One of the big things to do that I didn't do or we didn't do as a family that was do our due diligence and preparation. One of the things that are really annoying are simple things, just like an SMS that you need verification for your bank codes. So I've got a list of stuff that I put together that should help you guys out greatly. And again, let me give you that disclaimer out there. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my own personal opinion, trying to pass on to you some of the frustrations that I had going through the process here in the Philippines. First thing that my advice to you would be to get a inexpensive, cheap data plan that you can get. Just basically, you need the SIM card. Make sure it's working prior to coming out here, and you can get them. There's an example a friend of mine gave to me, was a tip on Tello, Tello, and it's approximately $5 a month for about 100 minutes of data and text. So that's going to be way more than you're going to need just for your SMS verifications, because there's a lot of your phone services out here that your VoIP services you get will not work with bank verifications. And I found that out the hard way. And there's nothing more frustrating than waking up on fill time. You're either midnight here, or you're 5 o'clock in the morning trying to talk to your local bank in the States, trying to get customer service going, and all you needed was a simple verification. And it will save you so much time and money, because you're having to call. If you don't have a plan, or you don't have something that can get your really low cost call to the U.S., you're going to be spending a lot of money. There's been a couple nights I've spent on issues that I've had $30, $40, even up to $50 on calls.
Yeah, that's right.
Been very, very frustrating. Second thing I advise, do yourself a favor, grab a Google Voice number. You can go to Google and you can Google it, but if you get that Google Voice number, you can call the States. They can't call you, but you can call the States, and you can call for free as long as you have a good internet connection. And I tell you what, that has been a lifesaver for us. When you need to get on the phone to talk to everybody, from your insurance to getting records to government offices or whatever it is, you can get on Google Voice, and like I said, as long as your internet connection is dialed, then you can stay on there for as long as that connection is up, and it won't cost you anything other than the charge of your phone. So that to me was a big thing. Also, excuse me. Also, a big tip for me was your ATM cards. Your ATM cards have a balance. In the States, you don't even give it a second thought. If you need something, you either put down a credit card or your ATM. But here in the Philippines, unless you have a local card here, and I'm going to touch base on that later on, it's hard, man. Everything is cash, and it's really frustrating to get stuff purchased, especially if you're buying online. So do yourself a favor and get your ATM limits raised, and that's going to come into play later on in some of the other financials that I touch on here. Get it maxed. If you can max it, max it. I mean, we bumped ours up to 5K. Didn't need it in the States because most of my purchases were under $1,000. I think I had a $2,000 limit, and my wife had like a $5,000. We bumped them both up, and it made a big difference later on, and I'll tell you why here. Also, touching on credit cards, get yourself a good credit card, or an international credit card if you can. We use USAA. It's been a fantastic card to use. Discovery works good here. You will not be able to get a local credit card here until you're established or you're on site, unless you have some great connections here in town, or you're hooked up. But if you're like us, who didn't have any family in the Batangas area here in the Philippines, you're kind of on your own. So you got to establish your credit and everything on. Not establish your credit, but you got to establish your baseline here, and then start to apply from there. I don't care how much money you have in the States; it doesn't make any difference. If you can't get the money transferred over, you can't use it, it's not going to do you any good. Trust me on that. And when you come over, my advice to you is bring the max amount of money that you can. over in US dollars. I'm not going to tell you, you know, bring more, because we both know that the limit is $10,000. But I'll tell you, you're going to need that. You're going to need that money, and you're going to need a place to put it in. And the U.S. dollars, especially because you're going to need to be buying you're going to need to be buying rent for your housing. You're going to need to be buying transportation, a car, motorcycle, whatever you choose. But you're going to definitely need that. So bring that over and bring it over safely if you can. Also set up your transfer, like your Remitly or your TransferWise, whatever your favorite account is, to transfer that stuff. I had no dealings with that prior to coming to the Philippines, so it was all new to me. I got involved. I started using PayPal. PayPal fees were higher. I started using, then I went to Remitly. Remitly was good. TransferWise was the best option for me. Again, like I said, this is my own personal opinion on it, so you have to take that for what it is. But the key thing is to get these transfers going, even if you haven't transferred out in your bank, just pay the small amount of fees to get your accounts established, because you have to validate your identity. You have to give them, you know, they want government IDs and passports and all that stuff, and it pays dividends big time. When you already have all that stuff established. If I would have done that prior to coming over, we would have been in better shape a lot quicker. And again, it all comes down to, you know, no matter how much money you have, but you got to get it from the U.S. banks over here. And it's a big thing in the Philippines about the money laundering. So they're really funny about that here. Everywhere you go, you get constantly being asked for documents. So so just keep that in mind when you go over here. And that's before you get to the States. If you can get that done, that'll save you a lot of headaches going on down there, because you'd be surprised. I mean, simple things like, we want to pay our HOA fees, you want to put deposits down for your contractor, all that stuff, unless you plan on having tons and tons of cash around, which I don't like. In the Philippines, we have a joke here. It's kind of like, we call it bags of cash, because every time you need to pay for something, you know, you got, you know, depends on who you're dealing with, they all want cash. And you feel like you feel funny dragging that money around. At least I do. So when you come into the Philippines, if you're, and this only applies to folks that are married to a Filipino spouse, you need to make sure that the customs officer documents your passport with the BB, the Balikbayan visa. I had never heard of a Balikbayan visa prior to coming into the Philippines. Before that, never heard that visa was available, but it's a visa that's good for 1 year for the spouse and family members of a Filipino coming into the country for 1 year. But the trick is, you guys all have to enter the country together. So remember that. If you guys get on different flights, come in a different time, it won't apply. But the customs officer failed to note my passport correctly. Didn't put down the date on it, the reentry. Put the BB, but he didn't put it on there, and that caused me some issues later on down there and down the road. And I'm going to touch on those when we get to some of the things you need to do. But again, just make sure, take that extra couple seconds and ask the customs officer to make sure that you've got the BB on there, the BBV on there. They'll put the flight number, and they'll put your date that your visa expires, which is on a Balikbayan visa, is 1 year. So remember that.
Yeah, because they're going when you apply your driver license, they're gonna ask for that.
And that's what I was going to touch on later on. That I was going to tell you how much frustration that caused me down the road. So again, that's a key when you're coming into the airport. It only takes a second to make sure that it's done right. We thought we had it in place. They did my wife's, but they didn't do mine, even though, you know, she didn't do a citizen. One thing that you're going to do, you're going to need something after you arrive in the Philippines. You're going to need some place to, because you can't get a bank account right away. Because they want to know your residence. If you're staying there like we were, B&B Air, or Airbnb, excuse me. I'm going to have to edit that section.
Yeah.
But if you're staying at an Airbnb like we were, because we were looking for local rentals. We came over just after the eruption on the Taal volcano, and it was very, very hectic. Picked a real bad time, but we had already had things booked. We sold our house, sold all of our personal belongings, our cars, everything. So we were already committed. So kind of had to go with the flow on that one. So we desperately needed a car for transportation. And as far as the bank went, we didn't have a bank account. I mean, you can simply, you know, if you had a bank account, you could wire your funds into a bank if you wanted to. It's a quick, painless way to do it, but it's going to be a lot more money because you're not going to get that mid-market rate. You're going to get the bank's rate, which is going to cost you. If you're spending, if you're buying a $20,000-$30,000 vehicle or even more, I mean, that's going to cost you thousands that you could have saved if you would have taken the time to go through do your work, your homework, and find out which one of those accounts are going to be cheaper. Simpler, but it's more expensive in the long run. So we actually went to the dealership, and they, usually go to the dealership in the States. They don't really care. In the old days, they cared, that cash was a big thing. Not anymore. Now it's, it's more of they prefer loans because they actually make money on the loans. Here they want cash, and it was when we bought our car, we had to bring in a backpack full of cash, and we had to acquire. And going through, having our money transferred from our U.S. bank into the Palawan shop, the local Palawan shop.
Ironically.
Yeah, that's what I touched on earlier. That we used 3 different systems to start out with, and eventually settled on TransferWise. But that's how we had 2 bank accounts in the U.S. We would transfer from her account and then also my account. So we were transferring $5,000 and $6,000 a day just to get the amount in. And again, I do not like carrying that type of cash around. Period. It's just something I don't feel comfortable, even in the States, let alone a third world country. But anyway, we came into here in Batangas, and I was surprised that they wanted the cash more so. Matter of fact, they even gave us a discount. They prefer it, and they usually give you a discount on.
Yeah, they give us a discount.
Mm-hmm.
What's also
Yeah. We use TransferWise to spend that money, and like I said, we touched on the Palawan shops. And that's the way we did it. So it's not the most effective way, but it's a way that worked for us, and it's a tip if you're in a jam like we were to get through that process. And the bank accounts, you cannot get a bank account here if you come over and if you don't have a visa established, you don't have your ACR card, and you're a non-Filipino citizen, you can forget about getting a bank account. So if you're lucky, like me, you got a spouse who's a Filipino, so she was able to get her account, but we wanted to get a checking account. And they would not let us get the checking account until we had been with them for 6 months. So we tried a couple different banks, and they told us the same thing. And one thing in the Philippines that I found out that from bank to bank, and even from office to office, there's a lot of different information that goes on in different procedures. Like if you go to like later on, if you go to the BI of the Bureau of Immigration, and you talk to one officer and then you talk to another officer, they'll give you, for the same exact visa or same information, they'll give you 2 different sets of criteria that you can meet, and it's even different than what's posted online. So it's something that you're going to find out quite often in the Philippines. It's usually based on what local office you're dealing with at that time. So anyway, we ended up getting a U.S. dollar account, and the dollar account, we didn't have to wait 6 months, but we waited probably about 3 or 4 months and went back in. But the weird part about it was you had to have U.S. dollars. This is something that just something weird, just something you're not used to experiencing. That somebody says, "Hey, you need U.S. dollars to open up a U.S. account." I said, "Well, I already have a peso account here. Why can't I just take $500 out of that peso account and transfer that into dollars, and you can put that into the account?" Can't do that. To them, that's a major no-no. So you have to have $500 in U.S. currency. So do whatever you can, but save, if you plan on having a U.S. account down the road, make sure that you save that $500 in U.S. currency, because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time cash one out later on down the road to open that account up. So another thing here, it's not second, but another thing that's really good here is when you get into town, after you get established, get yourself a P.O. box. Go to the local post office down here, and the post office I think was about $20 for the whole year. They're really cool. When mail comes in, they'll send you a text telling you that you got a mail or a package here for your important documents or stuff that comes on. Because when you're moving around till you get your home built and established, it's hard to get those deliveries of your important documents or information that you actually need, or family can or banks can send you. If they don't deliver directly to your house through UPS or one of those. Then they'll send it to the post office, and you know that it's safe going there. Second, I guess one of the other things that you need to pick up on is a driver's license. When you get to that point, and you stay here in the Philippines, you're going to need that driver's license. So when you go down to the driver's license, and here's where that custom stamp comes into play that caused so much trouble. I went down to fill in my driver's license, and not only me, but another friend of mine had the same issue. The stamp, the local office here in they call it the LTO, the Land Transportation Office, would not recognize my passport stamp, so I had to go back to the Bureau of Immigrations, and I went and spoke to one of the officers, really good people there, and they took care of me, and the officer basically put down what the customs officer should have done upon entering the country, is he put down the BB V on it, and he put the date on it, and he documented that flight was already there, but he just basically signed off a little bit on it. And so when I brought it back to the LTO, I did not have any issues at all and was able to process my license. So that's something that you need to keep in mind when having that done. So these are all things that are done afterwards. But we're in the process now of having a house built and experiencing. There's a lot of little fees that come on to it. It's normal fees that you pay. But it's something that money plays a big part in coming over here. If you plan on, if you're coming here on vacation, it's no big deal. You got your cash, you pay for it, you take care of it. It's an easy deal. It's a fun time. But when you're here permanently, it's like I'll give you a prime example of the house. We found a house that we're renting, and initially the actual the landlord wanted 12 checks post-dating. From a checking account, and I'm saying, well, we don't have a checking account, because when you come to the Philippines, they ask you, if you want to, you just can't automatically get a checking account. They usually only reserve those for business people that have businesses here. It's very difficult to get one from both the BDO and BPI until you've been around a while. So he wanted 12 post-dated checks, which I thought was crazy. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. But I checked with the local bank and asked them, and checked with some of the local folks and their local realtors and the attorneys and stuff. They said that's pretty common out here, that people that are renting long term will write them checks, and that's how they do the process. So now I just wire money through either Remitly or TransferWise, and then I wire directly into his account, or from my account, from our BDO. I got my choices now once you've been established, but when you first get here, it's very difficult. There you go again with the bags of cash, because you're bringing first and last month's rent, and you're paying for the deposit fees, and you're walking around with a wad of $1,000 pesos, because their currency here isn't like currency in the States, especially even with the exchange rate as low as it is now. It's still, you're having to carry around a lot of currency. Well, those are the current tips. I don't know if my wife has anything else or Neth wants to add to it. She's just had braces, having a difficult time, and kind of pushed me into helping her on this project, but I thought it would be good, because I wasted a lot of time here in the Philippines, and I went through a lot of stress going with a money deal. If I'd have known these tips ahead of time, and I'll tell you, the biggest tip of all, like I said, was that simple $5 a month SMS deal with having a card. It is that, and the Google Voice has been such a game changer. It's been unbelievable. So it's made my family life a lot easier, getting that done. Luckily, we've had some good local support here for some friends and some expats that we met here, and good folks. We've been fortunate. We've made some good friends here when we got here. But you remember, being a foreigner, it's not as easy as walking in the States, where you feel comfortable and you speak the language as well. Even though they do speak English here,
You will learn.
it's an adjustment. It was for me anyway. So, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and throw them in the comment section down there, and I'll try to give you an answer back as quick as possible. And if for whatever, like I said, this is my experience. It's not coming from an attorney. And if I got some of the facts wrong that are different than yours, I'm just telling you the experience that I had here. So I'll be more than happy to go over any of the details or share anything I can with you to help your stay or your trip over here a lot less hassle-free than mine was. All right, take care now.
Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channels and like and click the bell for notifications, so that you will receive for more videos for us. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.